Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is the this is a PX4 and the L95, which is down there, and I'll grab and pop up. Thigh rise, puck machine test, video review thing. So first of all, I actually filmed the original part of this PX4 one a while back, like a year ago, and the front footage of it ended up not actually recording correctly, and I was gonna have to redo it and refilm it, but then I had my knee injury and I couldn't put on pads and do anything hockey related for a while. So like that was like a 4-month break I basically had to take. So I couldn't go back and refilm that and do the test again. So I redid this pad and I ended up doing this next to the L95. They are different specs on this. This is an X stiff spec, where the L95 is just a stock thin stiff spec, which is like the default one for everything, where this one is kind of the custom one to make it stiffer. Well, with that said, to be completely clear and honest about everything, I am going to put the first results of this pad and the left pad of it. So I had the GoPro footage of it that worked. I didn't have the front footage. So I am going to put that footage at the beginning of this. I'm not going to talk about it or anything. I'm just going to put it in there just to be very straightforward about it and to be honest about what the results were. I don't want to try to hide anything. So you're going to see that first, and then we will jump into the L95 and the PX4 X stiff pad for this. Now, at the beginning of this one for the RVH, when we did it the second time, I noticed that I was a bit misaligned when the puck was coming in. So normally you want it to be like as straight as possible, so the puck hits it flat like that. It was a bit like this, and I adjusted it a little bit to make it a little bit better. I will say this as a caveat over and over again. The puck machine isn't 100% accurate, and it's not always consistent. It's pretty inconsistent, to be honest. It's kind of annoying. So I'm trying to do the same speed between everything, but some shots come off harder, some don't, and then it kind of fluctuates, and then it also kind of goes this way as well. I'm trying to make it so it's actually like a consistent test, and you get down here and you get on the tips as well, so you can see the results of how that works. This being an X stiff pad, the closest stiffness pad I've had to this that I've done this test with before was the Hyperlite 2 X stiffs, and they perform very well. They feel like they perform pretty similar to this one, maybe slightly better overall, but very similar as a total and as a whole. And something you'll notice in this video as well as in that previous video is that even though that this is an X stiff pad and there is like no break below the knee, you can see that's not really doing anything. When pucks hit the thigh rise up here, it will basically just force the whole pad. A lot of it happens below the knee, so you can see where my force of the knee is basically right here holding this part straight, and then the knee break bends, so the pad goes like that way, and the thigh rise stays kind of straight-ish. It still definitely flexes. All of the pads will flex, but it's straighter compared to like a softer cord pad. Like even those stiffer Vaughn pads I had before, you look at those and they literally just completely like fold in. This still stays a bit straighter up here, but below the knee does a lot of the work in terms of like how that is going like this and moving, and it's pretty impressive how much they actually move with that. Anything on the tip, like up here, is gonna just go through it. If that's the only part between the puck and the net and it's a really hard shot, there's not a whole lot you can do to stop that, to be just totally honest, and it might go in. So if you're like in an RVH and someone takes a slap shot or a really hard shot from the side and it just hits this and there's nothing behind it, it might go in. Worst case, best case, it folds and kind of flicks out. So obviously that leads to you want as stiff as possible on here, because the less stiff pads have a worse result on that. Now quickly going into the L95 on here, this pad is, you can see, single external brake, and it is a lot softer. So you do see this pad flex more in this video compared to that PX4. I will say True has done a pretty good job of stiffening the part up here, though. You can even still see though it still does flex, and you do notice this next to each other, but you can definitely see this is holding up pretty well for what this spec overall is. It's still moving, but it's still doing a pretty good job in the grand scheme of things. For this isn't the most stiff pad there is. It's pretty soft. Like I said, in the grand scheme of stiff pads, this is not that stiff. So pretty impressive, but at the same time, you can definitely see the differences between an X stiff and a regular stock stiff on here. And people will always have to make a decision of what you want out of your pad. Really, this one does really help with giving you a lot more shape. This is more aggressively shaped like this compared to the PX4, which are straighter up. I'll talk about that more in the full review. So you kind of have to figure out if you are more worried about that shape or if you want the more thigh rise, stiffness and stuff and coverage there. But I'm gonna show off the footage now, and then I'll jump back in and talk about the results when we actually see it in slow-mo through the GoPro footage. Check out the links in the description as well as the pinned comment to Aycane. Click that link and use the coupon code and you'll get a discount, which helps support the channel, gives me a kickback so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. So you're buying hockey stuff, in this case, base layers or clothing, and it helps support the channel so I can keep making more purchases and doing more reviews. And if you want to support the channel without buying hockey specific things or these base layers, you can always support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel and it is greatly appreciated. Yep. Yeah. A little more. Yeah. See there? Okay. Oh. Okay. Lower. Yeah. Yep. Right. Okay. Yeah.
and you want to support the channel and you need a base layer and a protective kind of supportive base layer that helps protect your groin as well as your hips, check out the Cortech. This is the Pro 1.0 pant, so this one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my groin and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. There's a discount code, and you click the link in the description. Use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing.
So both of these results are pretty solid overall, and like I mentioned, when talking about the RVH and the really stiff pads, you can see where those breaks are happening, and you can see the above the knee flex, and it looks like it's very much like a square thing. It's not a uniform thing. It just instantly kind of breaks, and you can tell where the pad's sectioned out. But the big part and the real part of the pad that's really allowing the top of the kind of pad to point in, well, not point, but get deflected into towards the net is below the knee, and you can really see how it just kind of rolls around the actual knee that's holding everything in place there. If you had no knee, the whole pad just ends up moving, so somewhere there has to be that anchor point. The knee is obviously the anchor point and is what is doing that. I mentioned previously, anything on the tips is going in no matter what pad. You would have to reinforce behind the thigh rise so much to make it happen that they'd be extremely thick, and it's just almost impossible to do. And it would also have to go all the way down to the boot too, so you wouldn't get that knee flexing either. But this pad does a really good job of actually holding pucks out. And when we go to the L95, it does a pretty solid job as well, even though it is that softer below the knee break. And you can really see that knee break doing a lot of flexing on here. The interesting part about this is it feels like the L95 has more of a torsional flex on it. When you can see pucks hitting it, you can kind of see the face of the pad, and it's not totally straight up and down from the camera view. It does feel that that is a lot to do with the anchor point of my knee. So when my knee is there holding that knee block down, obviously that's going to be a part that can't really move, but because the outer break is an outer break, that part is able to move easier than the inside edge of the pad, which I feel like adds to kind of the torsional look on here. The pad still performs really, really well, especially for how soft it is. I'm really curious to see how this is going to perform over years and years and years of use, just because I obviously don't have that on this pad yet, and just to see how much softer this pad gets over use. The PX4s have a decent amount of use for what they are. I did get hurt last year, but I used them quite a bit when I had a chance to, and they did go through 2 puck machine things so far, and they're still very stiff. So that one I'm not that worried about. And even the softer break, it's just gonna get a bit softer, but I'm curious how much softer it will actually get over the years. Again, pretty impressed with both of these. That's understating it. I'm very impressed with both of these. It's really hard to beat these results, and True has a really solid core and kind of pad build here. Again, this L95 is a Hzrdus build. It's the same overall construction as the X-Stiff PX4s here, minus that X-Stiff piece, so you get a little bit lighter weight and you get more of a shape to it just because they can be flexed, and you do have that below the knee break. So pretty impressive results on both of these, and the L95 specifically to be this close to the X-Stiff version. And I always mention, people have to really decide what they want in a pad and what they need. People will always tell me I'm in too stiff of pads and the PX4s are way too stiff and they're too straight. I don't have 5-hole issues with these pads. I don't really have issues with big gaps in my 5-hole all that much as people like to tell me. So I don't mind this X-Stiff, and I would probably prefer it if I went full custom again and did another set. But the L95 here, even with the softer break, which people definitely want this shape and a softer feel to, works really well and will work for a lot more goalies, and you can bend them and flex them more yourself. So eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed some marks on the L95, and doing tests like this is going to kind of wear down the pad, and puck machine shoots pretty hard, and it's a lot of hits over and over and over again. So just to be very clear on how this was obviously the X-Stiff, and the horizontal flex on it is kind of like this across the face. It's still very stiff. There's no issues. This one has gone through a bunch of puck machines and everything here is pretty fine. There is some slight You can see bending in the corner here. I actually think that was from someone digging. When people come in with sticks and really push in here, I find it doesn't do the nicest things to your pads. I think that's from what that one was, but this pad has gone through a lot more than what the L95 has. You can kind of see some like waves here. So this isn't totally like perfectly straight anymore. And you can see it does have a bit more flex across the face compared to the PX4. I don't think this is a stiffness in the core thing. I'm not positive though, but this one does have, you can see just a little bit more in there, and especially compared to the other one of it. Now, when you do look at that face right here, you also can, I think, hopefully, maybe it's harder to do, but you can see some, like right there is a dent on there, and it's just not uniform as much as it used to be. Again, Puck Machine does do things. It's hard, puck's hitting here at a decent speed, and you can see some of it on here. It looks worse in the actual video. I'm filming this part a couple days after I filmed the Puck Machine test. So sometimes things kind of look a little worse, and then foams kind of rebound a bit. And I've seen this with some Bauer pads I've done previously too, where it looked like they were destroyed, and I came back the next day and they looked pretty good and totally fine. So they did look pretty ugly from that view and that video, but it's not bad at all. And you can see it's not perfectly straight, and there is some like kind of damage to it, but it's totally fine. And these are tools and not art pieces, so they're meant to be used and kind of abused like this. So it's totally fine, and I have no concerns about it.
Subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, you can check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, to just hockey. If you're in the US, to pure hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback to help support the channel so I can keep buying more gear and doing more on-ice reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey specifically, you can check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Anything through any of those links always comes back into my channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.